We've done much reporting over the years on China's threat, even before anybody was talking about it, anybody, right here on BlazeTV. And I need to get back to some of that as well, circle back, despite all the issues that are popping up all the time. And also, we've done a number of shows with Peter Pry on the electromagnetic threats to this country. And they're getting worse and worse and worse, and our government's doing very little about it. So here is a report from India, WION, a real reporter, so you might want to take pictures. And she's terrific, and she talks about adversaries to the United States, making our electrical grid vulnerable, China, North Korea, and of course there are many others. Let's take a listen. Go.
A panel of experts at the Universal Peace Federation has now issued a warning on the growing threat of EMP or electromagnetic pulse weapons. Such an attack can knock out virtually all communications and other critical services of countries in a matter of minutes. For long, experts have warned that key electrical infrastructure in the United States remains particularly vulnerable to an electromagnetic pulse attack or EMP, likely to be orchestrated by China, North Korea, or even Russia. The Universal Peace Federation specialists have now said that the US is at a pivotal moment if it wants to avoid a potential doomsday scenario. But to analyze the risk, we must first understand what an EMP is and how it can be weaponized. An EMP weapon is one that directs a massive explosion of energy over an intended target, much like lightning. But in contrast to other conventional weapons, an EMP explosion does not physically harm humans. What it does, though, is cripple all electronic devices and infrastructure within its radius. The weapon at first is glided directly above an intended target. These weapons, according to the US nomenclature, are classified as high-altitude electromagnetic pulse or HEMP.
Let's stop a minute. That could be something as simple as an atomic bomb or a nuclear weapon that is exploded or detonated above the United States without hitting any of our cities in particular. And that pulse is so massive, it would knock out the electrical grid. Peter Pry's talked about this, others have talked about this. Even North Korea is building the capabilities to do that. Go ahead.
A HEMP attack can interfere with radio frequency and instantly produce damaging voltage in electronic devices across thousands of miles. It can hinder fuel distribution, transport, food and water supply, and most importantly, communications, especially military communications. Such attacks can permanently immobilize vehicles with modern electronic ignition and control systems.
So let's stop a second. Imagine every single thing that operates from electricity or battery power dead. You can't communicate with anybody. You can't use any of the items you have in your home. Communication's dead. Your cars don't work. You can't get gasoline at a pump because the pumps don't work. Trucks can't move. Food can't be produced because of tractors and so forth. Think of your sewage system. Your sewage system is a cleaning system that most towns have. It, again, works off electricity. You will not have clean water. You will not have food. You will not have anything. You won't be able to get a hold of your bank or your bank accounts. You can't use an ATM machine. They couldn't open up a vault if they wanted to. So you are destitute. You're thirsty. You're hungry. You have no way of communicating with anybody. You can imagine what would happen to this society. The number of deaths, the kind of lawlessness. You'd have the law of the streets, the inability to communicate with family members. And you might say, well, they can get it up and running again. The problem is these massive machines that they use, generators of sorts, if you will, transformers. They're enormous. They cost a fortune. They're extremely complicated. And there's not enough of them. And you can't get them fast. They're very difficult to produce. And imagine not just the United States, but Canada and Mexico, everybody's trying to vie to get them. And how do you even communicate to get them? So it is a complete and utter disaster. And here's the thing. It would cost us less than $10 billion to protect our electrical grid. The federal government pisses away $10 billion every week. Every damn week. They're spending trillions and trillions of dollars. They're throwing money around like they're dropping it from airplanes. And yet when it comes to securing the electrical grid or securing the border or building up our military to confront a very aggressive communist trying to do those things that are necessary to protect the people of this country. They won't do it. Go ahead.
Several congressional hearings and commissions in the U.S. have flagged the vulnerabilities of the American power grid. In 2015, a congressional committee testified in a joint hearing to discuss EMP weapons and preparedness. It asserted that a nationwide grid collapse, either via hemp attacks or other conventional methods, had the potential to wipe out up to 90% of the American population.
You got that? 90% of the American population would be dead because you can't survive. Everything's built on the electrical grid. As a matter of fact, the no-growth radicals on the left, they want even more to be built upon electricity, right? So you won't have many alternatives at all. Go ahead.
According to an analysis by the Task Force on National and Homeland Security, China already possesses so-called super EMPs. Analysts now fear that China's recent test of a new hypersonic glide vehicle last summer could give it impetus to deploy a high-altitude EMP against the United States. Though the U.S. keeps much of its EMP weapons capability classified, it is known that the U.S. Air Force High-Powered Microwave Advanced Missile Project, or CHAMP, is now being expanded. In October last year, a massive power outage in Mumbai in India brought India's financial capital to a grinding halt. In the wake of the disruption, Chinese hackers were blamed for launching a cyber attack. But it did offer just a sliver of the kind of destruction that a similar attack, in this case through an EMP, could actually achieve. Of late, governments worldwide have expanded mitigation measures against other forms of advanced warfare, including cyber attacks. As for nuclear weapons, all major world powers have them and conform to the mutually assured destruction doctrine for deterrence. But based on the US's own assessment and preparedness against EMPs, there is still much more to be done.
All right. We are naked, really, in the face of this. And even though I've been tooting the horn about this for some time, it's time to bring out the loudest horn I can find.
Want to see more? Sign up for BlazeTV.